Hi, I'm Kerrie Penny, and on this episode of Secret Heart Broadcasting, I'll be speaking with Janine Violini. Janine and Jamie Whitaker run a program called Crows in a Row, and what they do is educate people about the impermanence of life and planning for the inevitable end. So if you have questions about wills, or letting people know what your wishes are when you're gone, or you even want to start having those conversations, then this episode is for you. I did want to talk before we go about legacy. What is, when we talk about legacy, what is that? And how do you plan a legacy?
It's different for everyone, of course. When Jamie and I were adding that module on topic to our Crows in a Row program, we were, great on seeing others. And we were like, what is mine? And, Jamie's like, at that time she was, spring chicken. She was like, I don't have a legacy. And she's saying that as she's surrounded by books, English lit degree. That's all she does is read. And it's so funny because Jamie, Tim, and my sister Evie, who's the closest to me in the world, they're all the big readers. I call them my research team because I can't I read, but not like them. Anyway, Jamie's like, and she writes in all her books, and she writes, oh, this reminds me of so and so. She writes in all the corners of the pages, and it freaks a lot of people out. Anyway. We said, I kind of think your books are your legacy and what you've written in them. If you were to die before me, hopefully not, but if you were, I want one of your books that maybe you mention me in, or at least I can know what you're thinking, and I'll be with you in the moments where the waves are crashing down around me when I'm grieving. And so, yeah, she does it now, writes in the books with much more purpose. And for myself, again, it was this idea of I don't have kids, I'll never be a mother, never be a grandmother, but it's those archetypes, like what is the archetype of a grandmother? And my story is, when I was 9, I got to take ballet lessons, which was a really extravagant thing in our family. I was the only kid who got to take them, and I rubbed that into my siblings' faces all the time. And it was like, oh, I remember that year where I took ballet lessons. And anyway, at the end of the year, we had a performance. And of course, my grandmother used to make all our clothes, mostly out of curtains like the Von Trapp family or tablecloths. But for this final performance, I had to be a butterfly. And my ballet teacher told my mom, she needs chiffon and satin and sequins. And I didn't know what any of those things were, but my grandmother, they got the materials, and we had one of the bedrooms. It was a small house in Capitol Hill in Calgary, and my grandmother used to sew at her kitchen table. And I remember sitting across from her. I would always sit across from her when she would sew, and she made her own patterns. And she was making my butterfly dress, and she was making this out of these fabrics that I had never seen. And all I could think as she's hand stitching the sequins is, oh, she must love me so much. And I still have the ballet dress, of course. And so I bring that to all of our Crows presentations so people can hold it. And so I think part of my legacy is the love of a grandmother, the love of ancestors, and to share that with my next generations that I may or may not get to meet, to be able to say there is so much love behind us and so much love coming through us from the ancestors. It's hard to, it's sometimes so all embracing. It's hard to not be filled up with that. So I think that's my legacy. And so some people write letters. Some people think it is all monetary, and it can be, which is great. You've toiled so hard in your life. Your work meant so much, and here's what I leave to my people. Absolutely. It can be that, can be lessons learned. So it really is just something that says this is a mark I want to be remembered by, in a way you'll stay connected to me.
I love that. I noticed behind you, you've got photos of your ancestors. Is that a way to, to someone who's maybe new to exploring the idea of ancestral love? Like, is that kind of a quick experiment, or how would you, is there a how to vibe with your ancestors tip you have, Janine?
Yeah, I mean, there's the continuum this big, right? You want to study ancestral work, Daniel 4, there's amazing teachers who have studied all over the world, who have courses online. You want to go deep, you can go very deep. You want to tiptoe in? Yeah, look at a picture. Just stare into the eyes of someone in your ancestral line. Probably that you didn't know. I would start there. Relationships are complex. I mean, I adored my mom and dad so much, and my grandmother, all flawed like me. And so when you are beginning, you don't want to be focusing on the good, the bad, until you're able to say, and sometimes that's never possible. I understand that. And sometimes forgiveness is not meant to be, it's not healthy for anyone. But at times where you can just see, looking into the eyes and saying, that's part of who I am, and it doesn't have to be carried on, or it's part of who I am, and this is the parts I want to carry on. And so, for our conversation here, you know me, but this conversation, you have met Maria Fantine, my grandmother, how I carry her. You've met Angelina Fantine Violini, my mom, and how I carry her and her work. I think she would have been well known as a death doula. She did 20 years of volunteering at the bedside before death doula was called a thing. My dad, the only regret he had in his career was not being a funeral director. So, I carry all of them in, and that's, hopefully what you've seen in me, the good parts of me are them. And so just imagining what part of this ancestor do I want to carry on in this world, is probably the way to tiptoe in. And I remember after my dad died, it was about 3 years after, I said to my sister Evie, again, the all-knowing and all-wise one in my life, I said, I'm scared. I'm starting to forget his laugh. I'm starting to forget his voice. And she wrote the most beautiful email to me that just said, you can't possibly forget him. He's in your cells. He's part of your makeup. And like I say, for people who don't have that biological connection, we have that connection with so many people that they become part of ourselves. And so whoever your family and your ancestral line is, it can be scientific, it can be energetic, it can just be, this is how I want to be in the world because this person taught me that.
I love that. One question I like to ask everyone who's on Secret Heart Broadcasting is about the books they're reading. And I don't know if you have a few you want to talk about or you want to share. I know you've already admitted you have the great readers in your tribe.
According to my research team. Yeah, no. I would say, for me, there's always one book, regardless of what it is. Like for me, in the courses we took, Tuesdays with Maury, old book, but it was like, oh, we are all teaching each other how to die, whether it's what you would call a good death or a peaceful death or a horrible one. It's a teaching, right? And so we are learning from each other about death. And that book was the first one that sort of made me think, oh, how will I teach death? And then probably hospice work. It was Dr. Ira Bioch on Dying Well was the book that sort of shifted things for me. And then in grief, definitely Francis Weller, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, and all the books in between. But the one I did bring one today, and I don't know why I was so called to reread this. It was gifted to me, One Drum by Richard Wagamis. And I, it was gifted to me by a family that I worked with. They were going through a transition. It wasn't a death, but we did a lot of ceremony around that big transition. And they gifted it to me. And when I first read it, I think I cried through the whole thing. I just loved it. And I started rereading it again. I said, oh, well, the reason I'm rereading it is because, he speaks of ceremony. And there's a page near the beginning that I think describes, your secret heart just so perfectly. It was like he wrote the definition just for you. And so I thought, oh, I guess that's why I'm reading it again. So, beautiful author, deceased now, but yeah.
It's a gift to reconnect with you again, Janine. And I'm so glad you said yes. And, best of luck to you and Jamie with Crows in a Row. That work is so important. And, I absolutely love that you've got your, Excel spreadsheet corporate life. I mean, you're coming to us now from your corporate office, and the work you're moving toward becomes that, you're becoming more truly who you are in the world with the Crows in a Row work and death education. And how important is that? Wow.
Thank you, Kerrie. Thank you for seeing me and for wanting to talk to me about this. And, I'm always open for this conversation.
Well, I think that's important to know. And I do want to say for people watching today, if you like what you're hearing or seeing, please follow Janine and Jamie, available at crowsinarow.com. And yeah, just to continue that, like the secret sauce in all of this is love, right? It is love.
Yeah.
So yeah, continue to love. And thank you very much for watching. And thank you, Janine, for saying yes today. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please tell your friends.